So let's continue with tutorial 2.2.2, which is about the test design and test implementation with generative AI. We'll understand the basics first, and then there'll be few hands-on exercises that I'll cover as part of this topic. So let's see how generative AI can help with the test design and implementation activities. Now, if we talk about the software testing lifecycle, test design and implementation is the key part of that software testing lifecycle. If you have gone through my ISTQB Foundation course, you will know all these concepts anyways. Now, in the generative AI space, or when we talk about generative AI, how it can help in the test designing and implementation, we'll understand all of that in this theory section. So we talk about the test designing. Generative AI can elaborate and refine the test conditions that you have. Say, for example, you have the user stories, you have the requirements. You can prompt, or you can write a correct prompt and provide those user stories and requirement, and Gen AI will be able to generate the test conditions based on the requirements that you provide to generative AI or large language model. Then the generative AI will be able to help in translating the test conditions into test cases and testware as well. So we'll understand all of this practically as well, so you can use this practically in your projects. If we talk about the test implementation, that's another very important aspect. You have the test design, and then in test implementation you basically do a lot of stuff wherein you create the scripts, you create the test suite, you gather the test data that will be required to execute the test cases, right? So making sure that your test conditions are converted into the test cases and are ready to be executed on a particular test environment, that all happens in the test implementation. So creation or acquisition of the necessary testware to perform the test, to execute the test, that's the test implementation part. And Gen AI is also able to help you in the test implementation, whether it is the test data or fake test data generation, or figuring out how the sequence of the flow of the test cases should be or test condition should be. You can get all that information easily using generative AI. Then both manual and automated test script can be created, prioritized, and arranged with the test execution schedule with the support of generative AI. So in the test implementation, you can also arrange, or you can take the help of generative AI to see the priority based on the priority that you define in your requirements. So accordingly, you will get that information. Now, blindly following all of that information is not recommended. Making sure whatever you get out of the generative AI, you read it properly and make sure that it actually helps you or is relevant in your context, and then use whatever is relevant and change whatever is not relevant in your project context. That is very important factor. Do not blindly follow any of the tool or generative AI. Now, generative AI supports the creation and evaluation of the test cases, test data, test scripts, test environment, and it can also help in arranging tests into the execution schedules. This is very basic aspect of the help that you can get with the generative AI in software testing. There are a lot more things that you can do. Okay. Now we talk about the test case generation in detail, how Gen AI can help. So Gen AI uses natural language processing to interpret requirements, and it can then suggest the preconditions, the inputs, the expected results, the coverage criteria. So based on user stories that you provide, it will be able to analyze those user stories and can suggest you what should be the precondition, what will be the input, what test data you can use, what will be the expected results based on the requirements or user stories that you provide in the prompt. For example, if we talk about, if you have requirement, system must allow password reset via email. If you just prompt this, you say write the test cases for the requirement which says system must allow password reset via email, then generative AI, doesn't matter which model you go to Copilot, Microsoft.com, or you Google Gemini, it will be able to generate the test cases or the conditions. So generative AI generates draft test cases for the above requirement, and it will list you few of the examples, and we'll see that in action in the upcoming video. So for example, send reset password link if valid email ID provided, display error message if invalid email provided, reset password link should expire after 30 minutes. So based on the learning, based on the knowledge that Gen AI has or the model has, it will be able to suggest you the test cases or test conditions. So that's where Gen AI will be able to help you in the test case generation, and it will save you a lot of of time. Okay. Then the test data synthesis. It can help you to create synthetic test data resembling production data. For example, many scenarios we used to create the fake test data using any of the libraries. For example, in Python, we have some libraries, faker libraries and all that we used to use to create fake customer data that can be used in testing, because it is not advisable to use the real customer data. It's a data breach. So Gen AI can also help you to create synthetic data, and it preserves the data privacy. It can cover extreme situations and the varied conditions as well. For an e-commerce app, generative AI can generate test data for, say for example, test credit card numbers or customer names and the address, edge cases, for example, max transaction amount. So any scenario wherein you need the test data to be created, you can use generative AI to create the test data. Okay, that's where the Gen AI is helpful in the test data generation. Automated test script creation, very useful. Gen AI translates structured test cases into manual test procedures, automated test scripts, which is compatible with different frameworks like Selenium, Playwright, Cypress, etc. For example, if you have a requirement in generative AI, if I just paste in that requirement and I say that for this requirement, suggest a Selenium script or a Playwright script that I can customize and use it in my automation framework, so I'll get the code for that specific requirement. Or if you say for example have a screenshot of the web page or the page that you have in your application, or you define the flow, then it will be able to generate the automation script and will be able to create a script in a form that you can easily use by doing a little bit of customization. So that's where not only the manual test procedures but the automated scripts can also be generated using generative AI. It can update or extend the scripts as requirement evolve. That is also possible. As requirements evolve or change, the scripts can also be updated automatically using generative AI. We'll take an example. If we provide test case for valid user login and user lands on dashboard. Okay. For example, the requirement says if a user logs in using username and password, clicks on login button, lands on the dashboard page, write a test case, manual test case for that. It will be able to write the manual test case as well as generate the Selenium script. So whatever you ask, Gen AI can generate Selenium script for the same, or can write you the step-by-step test case for the same user story. So Gen AI saves testers time by automating repetitive coding tasks. Many scenarios, if you have to write each and everything from scratch, you will spend a lot of time, and that's what used to happen. Now with the generative AI in picture, you can use it to quickly generate stuff, whether it's the manual test cases and automation script, and then update them. That's where your time should be used more as a tester, because you should be utilizing your thought process to see whether the outcome or the output of the generative AI is suitable in that scenario. If not, update it using further prompts, and finally if you can't get it, update it manually based on the output that you have got and use it in your project. So the work that you used to do in couple of hours, now you can do in few minutes, 10-15 minutes, you can complete that. And then you as a tester can spend more time in exploratory testing, in designing complex frameworks and adding more scenarios to do robust testing for your application, right? Adding more and more scenarios and edge cases for your application, so your application is tested in much more advanced way. Now till now we had the limitation that with manual effort you can do little bit, but now with generative AI being in picture, you can use the capability to do a lot more in less time, and that's where you should be spending your time as a tester. Now if we talk about the test execution and scheduling and prioritizing, so generative AI can analyze the test case and its interdependencies. It can optimize the execution schedule based on the priority of the requirement that you have, or the test cases, risk level, resource availability, test objectives. You define things in the requirement in your test cases, and accordingly the generative AI will be able to analyze and suggest you the optimized execution schedule as well. You can also prioritize the test cases based on the complexity and priority of your user stories or the requirement. So if you provide that this is the priority of my user stories, prioritize the test cases accordingly, Gen AI will be able to analyze and prioritize your test cases in that format or in that order. For example, if you have the payment processing which is high risk, it will be scheduled first. That's what generative AI will be able to do, and not always it will be correct. Okay, and we'll see that this is not always, or generative AI is not always correct, but you have to use whatever is correct and use your knowledge to pick whatever is correct and relevant in your project. Then you have the profile update which is medium risk. For example, it will be scheduled after high risk. That's how the prioritization should be done by the generative AI. If you have these requirement, payment processing, profile update, and you have the marking as high risk, medium risk, the test cases for these requirements should be scheduled accordingly. First the high risk, then the medium risk, and then the UI color scheme which is low risk, it will be scheduled after high and medium priority, and your generative AI will be able to do this priority in very quick way, in very less time. That's where it will help you with the test execution and execution scheduling and prioritization. So that's all about this tutorial. In the next one, I'll cover another topic for ISTQB Generative AI testing certification. Thank you. See you in the next one.